As a meeting professional, things are never going to go as we plan them. You're always going to have something that happens and you're going to have to fix it. And so it's just being cool, calm, and collected and trying to come up with a quick, fast response to it. When people look at events, they're not the same as they used to be. So we just have to look at what can we do for our events to provide a meaningful experience that makes our members, attendees want to come back year after year, and what makes them decide that, yes, I'm going to take the time, to leave my family or maybe bring my family to this event.
Hello and welcome to today's episode of the Keynote Curators Podcast. I'm Seth Dechtman, your Keynote Curator. Our guest today is Michelle Allgauer. Michelle, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Seth. I'm so glad to be here today. Thanks for having me.
Well, I'm excited because you're a veteran of the events industry. And for those that are listening and viewing, come from the events industry. For those that don't, they're here for leadership, teamwork, communication, tips, and ideas. Please subscribe. Please share it with your teams, your family, your neighbors, whomever else you feel would benefit from this great podcast. And today's guest, Michelle Allgauer. Michelle, you are a veteran in the events industry. And from my point of view, the events industry is going through what I think is not only a transformation, but a little bit of a renaissance. Stakes are higher and demand is really high for producing great events with content, attendee experience. Could you share your kind of view and outlook on if that's true and how you feel about the state of where the industry is?
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Events are critical and ever changing. And probably the biggest transformation I've seen is just people are looking for more experiential as it relates to events. So when they're coming to an event, they're looking to potentially go to that location so that they could bring their family and have a pre or post trip in relation to the conference itself. So that's something that's kind of evolved over time since COVID. I think people are bringing their families more to events than they have. I also think that some of the challenges we currently are having are with staffing just in general, and just the cost of goods are going up. So when people look at events, they're not the same as they used to be. So we just have to look at what can we do for our events to provide a meaningful experience that makes our members, attendees want to come back year after year, and what makes them decide that, yes, I'm going to take the time, to leave my family or maybe bring my family to this event. So I think that's one of the challenges we're currently facing and trying to figure out where that balance is.
Yeah, there's so much competition, right? The events are getting better, which then as potential attendees or the habitual attendees being pulled in every direction, because not like a shiny fire truck. Oh, look, mommy, and you run off to what the hot next thing is. But I look at agendas all the time, and they're just so attractive and so appealing. And you talk to experiential, either the pre or the post, but there is a focus on the experience of the attendee from the moment that they register to their post-event survey and follow-ups, and perhaps beginning to plug them into the next event or the next annual conference that they just attended. Have you seen anything from your experience that really calls your attention out, that's interesting and, that our audience should know about with regard to the attendee experiential experience at the events?
So I think each event is different. So what I've experienced may be different for someone else. So I would first
Sure.
say, and I'm going to quote my CEO, he always says, data, facts, and analysis. So go out, survey your attendees, try to find what it is that they're looking for as far as content, as far as experiences, and then try to develop and design your program that way. From events I've gone to and events I've developed myself, some of the unique things are, incorporating wellness into your events. a year ago, I was in Mexico for MPI's WEC conference, and they did a really good job of doing that. So I took some of those learnings from that conference back to my own events and started incorporating. So even if you don't have a big budget, there are just little things that you can do to make small changes. And then over time, those small changes, they build upon each other. I was at an event earlier this summer, a Marriott event, and they had in the morning optional fitness for people. So if you wanted to walk or run, you meet up in the lobby and you as a group go and do the event yourself. So it's kind of taking it off the organizer and putting it back on the attendee to find those groups that they want to meet up with and do that activity of whatever that activity may be. And I think that's a great way of letting people decide what it is they want to do and not putting so much onus back on the planner.
It's a great point, because it's not just the attendee shows up and washed me over with a great keynote, which is what I'm very involved with, or here's a panel discussion that is just can't be missed, or a breakout session that's required for some, CEU or something like that. There is a responsibility on the attendee. And whether it's meet up in the lobby for a walk, run, or a yoga kind of moment, or even a meditation, a mindfulness moment, bringing yourself as the attendee forth to participate and be part of the activation is so important. What I found as an attendee is when I do go to these wellness events, I was recently at one and there was yoga. And now, when I ran into those people that participated in yoga, whether it was at the break or at a lunch or later at another session, it was already a different kind of connection. And it's a space where meaningful connections can happen apart from the content, which you could
Right.
say that the wellness experience is part of the content, the holistic experience as well. But bringing responsibility to the attendee as well is I see as critical.
And just like when you and I were at WEC in Louisville, the open night reception was at Churchill Downs. And so they had an activation where attendees could make their hats prior to the event. And again, you're just trying to incorporate something with the area that you're at, giving the attendees that experience of
Yeah.
local flavor.
And I was one of those that was happy about that, because while I did get the pre-event communications about the hat and all that, I didn't pack one. I was coming from another two events. It just logistically didn't work for me. So I was appreciative of that, and the thoroughbreds and the bourbon certainly
Mhm.
helped as well. I want to move into kind of what you do in your role. You're the senior vice president of education and engagement at the Financial Services Institute. And it's a big and important role. But from what I understand and what I've read about you, and when we've had our discussions in person, is you have a pretty lean team in a good sense of the word. You punch above your weight. A lot of people wear a lot of different hats and do a lot of different roles. And, sometimes it's stuff that we love, and sometimes it's stuff that we love a little bit less than the other stuff. As a manager, as a senior person in your organization, how do you have your team organized, or what's kind of your mind frame around working with those teams and having people operate in all these different realms?
Mhm. We're definitely small and mighty. But I definitely want staff to have something that's keeping them busy throughout the entire year. And if I don't have something that's going to keep someone engaged throughout the year, then look at other ways and how to get that done. So we do a lot of outside consulting where we have consultants help us to fill in those busy periods when we need it. I think the biggest thing with our team is collaboration. You have to collaborate, looking for, what really gives you energy. So we have someone on our team who loves social media. I'm not a big social media person, but she loves it. And so we have tasks like, hey, you run with it, you build it. And she's just taken it to new heights. And so I think it's really key to try to find, the strengths on your team and then know what the weaknesses are and try to figure that out so that you're helping people build their skill set, even if it's a weakness. But you're really trying to give them work that excites them, engages them, and is an area of their strength as well. So I think that is really helpful for us. And of course, we all have to do the administrative tasks. No one wants to do them, but they have to be done. And as long as we're all doing it, it's not like, oh, that person's doing it and this person isn't. It's a fair workload.
But your journey from, I think, the first organization
Mhm.
you did events for was a nursing organization. Is that right?
So I started with American Bankers Association.
Okay.
I
I've
did
heard of,
work,
I've heard of them.
yeah. And so I was with them for 7.5 years and then also worked with America's Community Bankers, which eventually merged with ABA. But I did work with a nursing association. And that's where I originally, the nurses were the main reason they came to the events that we planned was for continuing education. And
Sure.
so they needed to maintain all the credentials behind their names. I had none at the time. And I was just as passionate about what I was doing as they were about their profession. And I realized if they're this passionate about it and they're maintaining their credentials, I don't have an excuse anymore not to sit for my CMP because I had been thinking about it, but just kind of had, put it off. So that was where I was decided to sit for my CMP. And that certified meeting professionals shows that I understand how all the acronyms and all of that, how to speak the language with my stakeholders, and that I was just as serious about my profession as my members were. And then I went on from there and decided I wanted to continue to grow in my role. I wanted to be more than a manager. I really wanted to see at the table. And so I decided to get my CMM, and that's certified meaning management certificate through MPI. And that was really to show the strategic side of meeting planning. So in order to earn the certificate, I had to write a business plan. And your business plan could be on anything, but I decided I wanted to write it on my department that I was working in and write a 3-year plan on where I thought we would grow, how my team would grow, how our meetings would grow. And I had to build a budget and everything. And what was awesome was I was actually able to take that plan and implement it and see it actually come to fruition. So that was incredible for me to go through that experience and then actually be able to apply it. After I got my CMM, again, just wanted to continue building my skill set and looking to earn that seat at the table. I went on and got my CAE. And so that was through ASAE and a certified association executive. And that shows that not only do I have experience just with the meeting planning, I understand how the whole association works. I understand the
Yeah.
financing, I understand the marketing, the education. And
Membership.
yeah, and that really just helped me in my role, and because of all of those, I have to maintain my certifications and continue taking continuing education, professional development, and I think that's great because it makes you continue learning. It makes you continue applying what you're learning and continue to grow in your job. So
Yeah. And that you kind of put yourself in that place where you're, in the healthy sense of the word, forced to continue
mhm,
to grow and
yeah,
expand your capacities. And everything from sustainability to when COVID came along, and the health and well-being of attendees and all these protocols is so important. Now, take it even further, in the Potomac chapter of Meeting Professionals International, you began to cut your teeth in leadership there as far as a professional association. And then you are now chair. Are you still chair of the International
I
Board of
am, I am,
Directors? Okay, you
I am
are.
through the
And
remainder of the year.
yeah. And that's where we met in Luxembourg, and we ran into each other in Louisville. And that's exciting and thrilling, but it's an honor and a privilege to come from that. What are some of the things that you've taken away, halfway, a little bit past halfway of the year of that chair, and a little bit of reflection on that?
So I'll start with the local chapter first. So again, when I was working for the Nurses Association, when I decided to take my CMP, I knew I needed to take a study course for it. I hadn't been in college for quite some time. And so I was looking at different associations that offered study programs. And I finally decided to do the Potomac chapter study group. I don't think I was not a member when I first joined to take the study group.
Right.
However, during that study group, I met lots of people from the Potomac chapter, and I eventually became a member of MPI. So I'll be a member, it'll be 20 years this September, just crazy. And so I signed up to become a member during the study group. And then after the study group was over, I became really close friends with the people I was studying with. And they said, "Hey, Michelle, we have this Women's Leadership Council. Why don't you come and sit in our meeting?" And I had no idea, what it was about, but I'm like, sure, I'll come. Probably within a year that the same folks said, "Hey, Michelle, we can't go to the chair meeting. Why don't you go on our behalf?" And next thing I know, they're telling me to run for chair of this committee, which I did. And that really started my leadership journey with MPI. And as you mentioned, I eventually went on the board and became the Potomac chapter president. And all the while, I felt like my experience with MPI helped me grow in my role professionally because I was trying to get that seat at the table in my current job, but there weren't necessarily those opportunities available. So I was getting the leadership skills and development through the chapter and building my confidence and testing it in a safe environment, building my
Right.
network, and able to bring all that back to my job and help me continue to elevate in my role. After I was chapter president, I wanted to continue on my volunteer leadership role. I was very energized by the community. I love our community. And I went on to serve in several leadership volunteer roles within MPI Global. And then 6 years ago, I applied to be on the International Board of Directors. And so I've been on there for 6 years. 2 of those years, I was vice chair of finance, which happened to coincide with COVID. So no
Oh,
challenge
goodness.
there.
Goodness.
Uh, yeah, but Bonnie Carlson was the vice chair of finance that first year, and then I followed her for the following 2 years. And I would say, again, the biggest thing with my involvement has been the community, number one, and the networking has just been tremendous. And then the education. I originally came for the education. I stayed for the community, and it's just been so incredible to be a part of this board over these past years. Prior to COVID, we were building our 5-year strategic plan. COVID hit, we realigned, revisited, and we're more on track than we were pre-COVID. And so
Right.
we're financially sound. We're continuing to build out that 5-year plan. And that's just been incredible to be a part of that.
Just speaking to you, if we could replay what you just shared, I'm often when I speak with leaders like you, I'm just so often curious about how and I asked this at the beginning of our conversation, how you deal with your team. And what I've learned from you is, your team, you punch above your weight and you're mighty and mightier than you might appear. And in that there is the need to grow and develop your team, your
Mhm.
people that you work with, like this example you used of one of your members, one of your teammates, your colleagues with social media. And I'm always curious. Everybody has a different style and a different method, and there's more than two sides to a coin as how you develop your staff and your team and people that you work with. But if future certified meeting professionals were to listen to your journey, it is a roadmap. It's your roadmap, but there
Mhm.
is a pathway there.
Mhm.
Start local, find, do the work that's relevant to the job that you have, volunteer, extend yourself, sacrifice a little bit of your time for the bigger picture. No, you kept saying you wanted a seat at the table. That seems like that was your North Star, a little bit of the
Mhm.
fuel of your
Mhm.
purpose. And over time, you get exposed to so many different aspects of the work that you do and different organizations, smaller, larger, different industries. People have different strengths and different backgrounds. It's just I just wanted to underline that because it's a great roadmap for our audience and people that are listening and are curious about a way, not the way, but a way to expand and develop themselves in this
Sure.
industry. So thank you for doing that. I want to shift gears a little bit, and it has to do with the training and development that you've taken on
Yeah.
for yourself. You know, at the Financial Services Institute, where you're the VP, the Vice President of Education and Engagement. I know much of your career has been about event planning and education, and I love that phrase where you said you came for the education and stayed for the community.
Mhm.
We can't avoid what everybody's talking about this year is AI,
Yeah.
artificial intelligence. From your perspective, in the event planning industry, how can it be leveraged to enhance the
Yeah.
attendee experience and still preserve that unique, special kind of human touch?
Great question. So I first say embrace it. And you're better off being uncomfortable. You're going to grow from it. And so I have actively been pursuing to learn more. I would say probably over a year ago, I was speaking with my team about it and what we could do to use it, to leverage it, to help us in our jobs. And we have been using it for a good year. It's interesting, not our whole company. And again, we're a small team. Not everyone's even in it yet. We're just in the process of developing a policy. We have a draft policy now that we've developed that we're slowly rolling out to staff and how we're going to use it. But some of us are using it. I just recently took 2 certificate classes. I took a micro certificate class at Marriott headquarters a couple of weeks ago, and then I took MPI certificate AI class.
Were
Just
both of those, Michelle, were both of
yeah,
those very specific to utilizing it within the event industry, or was it more of a general? Because this is something that's come up, and I've even talked to my team a little bit about it as well.
yeah.
What educations and how specific should we be getting at the beginning?
I mean, I think the micro certificate was really just an overall view of how you use it and
But
how
still
you
useful, still a great
very, very
introduction.
useful.
Yes,
And again, it was things I knew, but just taking it a little bit, repeating things you've heard, but you need to have things repeated several
right,
times before they sink in.
right.
And just
Guilty.
getting comfortable with the platform. Um, what I liked on the certificate class I just took, they said, think of AI as your assistant. So think of it, it's helping you do whatever it is that you need it to do. And so it's learning how to ask the right prompts. It's learning how, can I upload a document and help me with something? So I find for me, it's just a great, like, when you just don't know where to start, you can just put in some information
Yeah.
just to kind of get it percolating. And all of a sudden, oh, I hadn't thought about it that way. And then you reframe it for the way you need it. We use it for session descriptions. We use it for marketing copy. We use it for emails. We use it,
I used it the other day to
subject lines. Yeah.
alphabetize a list. I mean,
Yeah. It's
yeah, I was,
amazing the things it can do. And
yeah,
so I think you need to take time to learn how to use it so that it will save time. Because if you don't
right.
take the time to learn how to use it, it's never you're gonna be stuck. So I was really excited about the class. Last week, I started writing down all these things that I could use it for that I hadn't even thought about. And then it just I don't know, I think it's a great resource. It's gonna continue to change. One of the things they did say during our course is I think only 20% of the companies out there right now have an AI policy in place. However, in a year, they imagine all companies will have a policy. At the beginning of the year in January, when they first taught the certificate course, hardly anybody had any experience with AI at all. And now, it's shifting. So we're going to continue to see that change. And AI has always been part of things that we do, but it's just now more prevalent in everything
Yeah.
that we're doing.
More on the forefront. And I think it's more accessible for people like you and I who
Yep.
previously were using it, but were unaware it was in the
Mhm.
background and we were
Yeah.
receiving the benefits of it. But now we
Yeah.
have it, we can have a hand in it.
And
I
it's
want
not
to,
going to take people's jobs away. It's
No,
not.
it's not. It's not. Especially in event planning, Michelle, which is what we're most interested
Yep.
here as having you as the guest. They're not taking it away. As you said, it's a collaborator, it's an assistant, it's a tool. It's not the end, but it's a means. It
Yep.
can turbocharge, whether giving you time back or taking care of some of the low hanging fruit and freeing up your mind for more creativity. And what's most important, and I think coming back to the beginning of our conversation with these experiences and putting more emphasis on that, the human touch and the human touch at
Right.
these meetings. And, meeting planners say the same thing, I think, a million different ways.
Mhm.
Meaningful connections, unique spaces, spaces for meaningful
Right.
connections, memorable experiences for attendees and those that are creating the spaces for the attendees. What are some examples or some strategies or anything that's kind of turning you on, whether it's a bespoke kind of artisanal
Right.
experience or something a little bit more in the masses that has resonated with you on a personal level?
I think some of the things, and again, I have a limited budget, so I don't have lots of money to do all these like big things. But
Right.
one of the
Rent
things
rent the
that,
sphere, right?
yeah, exactly, that would be awesome. But just trying to get like our sponsorship program at our events of curating experiences for them so we have coffee at our events. So how can we take it to a next level and give our attendees some type of experience and pull our sponsor in to pay for that experience? And so having like a cappuccino where you have some type of design, whether it's the company logo or something on it, just to give that little extra to that person and enhancing, your regular coffee too. So it can be little things like that. I'm trying to
It's
think of
something that
other.
can spark a
Yeah.
conversation and it's a
Right.
little bit of a connection apart from, hey, I'm a sponsor and you're a potential client. Let's, do business where you're creating an environment for people
Mhm.
to connect on a deeper level or something that, outside of a transaction, if you will.
Right. Exactly.
That's cool. You know, looking down the road from here, does your chairship end at the end of the year?
It does, but I'll still be on the board for one more year as immediate past.
Right. You strike me as a person that even though that position will
Yeah.
have its natural end, that it's not the end for you as far as your participation and leadership with the organization. St. Louis is
Right.
on the horizon for
Mhm.
2025 for MPI's. That's the WEC, right?
Yeah, and we'll be announcing the European one shortly, the
Shortly. Good.
location. Yeah.
Exciting. Very cool.
Yep.
I was
Yep.
I was emailing with some of your colleagues over at MPI who when we were in Luxembourg, I
Mhm.
worked with and kind of beginning to get a little bit of the lay of the land of what we might be able to bring in there as far as keynote speakers
Oh,
go.
great.
Yeah. So at the institute, what is your role with regard to bringing in the content and keynote speakers? I know there's an
Yep.
educational aspect of it, but
Mhm.
what have you seen as the sands are shifting, like AI and
Yeah.
more health and well-being and experiential? What are you seeing, and what's been appealing to you from your perspective?
So I work with our members to create the content. So our content is developed and created by our members for our members. And so we have monthly meetings with them to talk about topics, talk about speakers. And our annual was in January of this past year. And obviously AI was huge. And then I don't want to go there, but politics are huge. So we always need to have someone talk about just the political environment and how that's going to impact our business because whether you're Democrat or Republican, it affects our members, it affects their business. So they need to kind of keep a pulse on what's
Yeah.
happening and it's changing all the
They need
time.
to be informed and it's inevitable, right?
Yeah.
And you do
Yeah.
your level best to give the facts, right?
Exactly. Exactly. So we had someone at our conference this last year speak about that and also someone talk about AI. And then our breakout sessions are really geared towards their area of interest. So we have topics related to CEOs, topics related to operations technology, compliance, et cetera. And they're mainly speakers are from the industry that are speaking to
Sure.
peers.
That makes sense.
So
Yeah.
going into our annual this year, we haven't dug too deep into what those journal sessions are going to be, but they're going to be the same. We're going to have someone talk about the political environment and how that's impacting our
Right.
business, and then AI. And so when they're currently developing all of our breakout topics right now, and almost each of the different areas have AI as a focus.
Yeah.
And so I am recommending we pull all the AI topics and have them as a standalone, their own session room that's being held concurrent with the other concurrent. So we have just one AI focus in every time slot that we have.
It's
We
like
start out,
AI HQ.
yeah. So we start out with a general session, overall AI, and then we go into how is
Sure.
AI impacting ops tech, compliance,
Yeah.
the CEOs, and like really digging into it.
Getting farther under the hood.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's great. And the members are eager and hungry to put their mark on the content and the curation of, the agenda and what's going on there. So that's great.
Yeah. So hopefully if they develop it, they come, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. That's true. That's true. And, I don't know whether it's Luxembourg, Louisville, or Western Montana. I don't know where we're going to run into each other next. Hopefully, again, back at EMEC or, at
Absolutely.
WEC in St. Louis for sure. I just want to finish with a couple of questions here to give you to get a sense from you what's important for our listeners. And I want to revisit something I learned about you. I was recently interviewed or reached out to from meetings.net. They run a weekly newsletter, 20,000 people receive it. And SHRM, which is the Society of Human Resource Management, had a very prominent keynote speaker cancel at the very, very last minute. And I was on vacation, and I had been, I read about it. It came into my feed, and simultaneously, somebody from meetings.net had directed messaged me about something completely different. And I said, hey, did you see about this? And he's like, I'm actually writing an article. It just occurred to me. Could you comment on that? So I talked about contingencies, and I talked about when things go wrong and things go really wrong. And I don't care if you're a large organization or you're Mighty Mouse like you and your group, or you have a whole army behind you, all hands on deck. Share with us your experience when you had lost a hotel that was in breach of contract, and connect the power of community and that whole connectivity of reaching out beyond one's own network and ability, not just for help, oh my God, I'm in trouble, but leveraging that and really becoming more than who you are alone.
Well, I will say, first of all, as a meeting professional, things are never going to go as we plan them. You're always going to have something that happens, and you're going to have to fix it. And so it's just being cool, calm, and collected, and trying to come up with a quick, fast response to it, because that's our job on site to handle all those. And I've had situations where speakers cancel at the last minute and trying to fill those holes. But specifically to this example, so when I started my current job with Financial Services Institute 12 years ago, first week on the job, our annual, it's end of September. Our annual is
I'm not good at math, but from what I understand, that's the first 7 days of being on a job. Okay.
Yeah. Our annual's in January, and registration's open. People are making hotel and travel arrangements. And I get a call that the hotel is breaching our contract. And so they're not offering any solutions. They're not offering to help me relocate this meeting to somewhere else.
Like one
And
of their sister properties
exactly.
yeah,
And in all of my entire career, I've never had this happen. Granted, we've seen a lot of this since COVID where contracts are just, but so this is the first time I ever had a contract that was breached. And I couldn't believe that they were doing this. I go to my boss and I said, okay, you know, I don't know what to do. The hotel just contacted us. They're not willing to help us. And he's like, oh, just find another hotel in a warm location in January that can fit all of our breakouts. And we have like 6 breakouts,
right,
at a time
right,
that can accommodate our exhibits and general session that's in one building.
right. That's
You go do
easy to
that.
get to,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. And you go do that. And so again, just not realizing, I think a lot of times we make our jobs look real easy and,
yeah,
oh, you can do this, even though it's my first week on the job. There was nothing wrong with our contract. It was well written. That wasn't the issue. The issue was that the convention center in the city couldn't book business because all the hotels around the convention center were full. And so they decided that they were willing to pay all the penalties and fees to move us so that they could put business into the center.
right,
So I'm stuck. They're not willing to help me. I immediately reach out to all my network, all the people I've met through MPI, all the people I've met over the years through through all, I had just announced I'm in a new job. I'm like, hey, I need help. And so luckily, San Diego at that small time of a period had
right.
a hole that perfectly fit our
Wow,
meeting. They had a citywide going on at the time. So they had a hotel that had all this meeting space because everyone was in the center and they had
right.
the exact amount of sleeping rooms that we were looking for. We had the highest attendance at that event. So I am so thankful, like you said, that I was able to reach out to my contacts. Everyone was trying to help me. And if I hadn't had, those relationships, I probably would be out of a job.
Yeah,
Um,
right.
so, relationships matter. They really matter.
Relationships matter on that end of it. Not that anybody wants to be a heavy or a hard, tough guy. We're gonna threaten you, but relationships matter on the other side. You reached out to your
Yeah.
relationships, and I always say people want to help.
Yeah.
People want to help. I travel a lot. We're in a multilingual family. Some people are more facile on one language than the other, and there's a little bit of an embarrassment. And I say, open your mouth
Mhm.
and people will help. They
Yep.
want to. And I really mean that. People are willing and ready and able to help. So I
And you
just
don't
appreciate
know if you don't ask, at least
that's
ask.
right. That's
Right.
right. And you never know who you're talking to
Right.
either.
Right.
To your point, ask
Mhm.
because you don't know. You think you know this person, and then they open up a whole new world about themselves. Oh my God, I used to work at the convention center in San
Right.
Antonio. Let me call,
Yeah.
my former,
Exactly.
and it's like you didn't even know that about them. So
Mhm.
I just wanted you to share that because it just demonstrates the power of community, the power of asking, reaching out, and as you said, solving problems. I hear we have athletes on, we have former F-16 fighter pilots, and they talk about breakdowns and chaos. And the common thread is solving things happen, guaranteed. It's called
Yep.
life, being human. And then we resolve problems. I've had tennis players on, they talk about being on the court at the US Open. They have problems to solve. They're hitting aces against me. I need to solve that. You
Right.
have a speaker cancel. I need to solve
Mhm.
that. Not the same details, but still requires that same, like you said, stay calm, look for ideas, reach out to your community, get your resources and deploy something. So it's just a really rich example of, how the power of community works. Michelle Allgauer,
Yeah.
we are at the end of this wonderful conversation. I know you've carved out time to be with us, and I just appreciate it. You're a leader in every sense of the word, so your time is valuable. And this conversation was really rich. And, again, for our community, this is gold. So listen, learn. You have a pathway for a future of expanding your capacities and developing yourself in the meeting profession and in business and leadership and helping staff and employees develop themselves. So just thank you so much for being so generous with us.
Thanks, Seth. I really appreciate it.
You got it. And for our listeners, as I said, subscribe. Thanks for coming back. Share with your neighbor, your convention center, your hotelier, whoever it is, your postman, your butcher, your gardener. Everybody and anybody can learn from the Keynote Curators podcast, because when you listen, you're smarter for it.